In this section, we're going to talk about financial myths and mistakes people make, other ideas. We are so confused by the media, by those that are selling us things that we really just don't understand how money's made or how it's saved or how to get out of debt early. But let's go through these. When we talk about financial myths, a lot of people say, well, there's bad debt and there's good debt. There is really no good debt. All debt is bad debt. I know whether it's to buy a business, you may consider it debt, but until it's paid off, it's always bad. Pay yourself first myth. That means let's try to put money away and save instead of getting out of debt. The problem is, you'll see later that it is much more profitable and efficient to pay off debt before we put money away in any savings account because we get such a great return on our money, like we talked about. They say, why not? Why should you not pay a 3% interest rate on your home? Of course, we realize it's not a 3%, but it's really a 400% interest rate or 300% interest rate when you can get 7% in the market. Well, this last year, the market was down probably a negative 4.5%. So it's not always a guarantee in investing. Buy the most expensive house you can afford. No, you should always buy the house that you can pay off in 5 to 7 years, and then you're free. Emergency myth fund. We talked about that already, and why it's just better to focus on debt reduction and use your paid off credit card for emergencies so that you can start getting out of debt as soon as possible. The idea of budgeting gives you a false sense of security. The real trick is automatically taking money out each month right out of your bank before you even see it. This is how you get out of debt efficiently and fast. The idea of putting money away for college education, you may only be getting 6 or 7% in that return, but you could be still getting, if you paid your debts off, over 100% return on your money. So it's not practical to have a college fund until you're debt free, and then you'll have all the money you want to pay off cash. If I just had more money, and I've helped people make more money and never talked to them about getting out of debt, they just got further in debt. It is not the secret. I agree, make more money, but any extra money you pay toward debt. Other myths, life insurance as an investment. There'll be many people that will try to sell you whole life insurance and say it's an investment. In reality, you'll get a much better return by buying term insurance and investing in difference in debt reduction or in the market. Monthly payments are normal. They are not. I mean, they are normal now for you, but you can change that. And when you do, it's just like, it's your freedom. No more payments. Can you believe this? Trying to have a home so you can write off taxes. We've talked about that. Financial advisor myth, and we're going to talk more about that, but a financial advisor usually will have the ability to take 50 or 70% of your return on your money, even if they're only getting a 1% advisory fee. And we'll talk about that later. Well, maybe I should fund my retirement instead of paying off debt. In this example, when we talked about that $500 that you put away, if you did that over 30 years, you would have a little bit over $1,140,000. But if you paid off debt and started and only had 22 years, 0.3 to pay off debt, instead of $500, you would have the $22,598 of all the money you were spending toward debt. In reality, after 30 years, you would actually have $2.5 million, almost $2.6 million, a little over close to 2.5 times as much if you paid off debt first. That's because, as we talked about, you are getting a greater return by paying off debt. Buy home is not your best investment. It's a great way to make money by paying off the interest rate, but the home generates ongoing expenses, including mortgage interest that can double the purchase of the interest. That's why the house costs you twice as much in interest, and that's why we want to pay that off. Also, property taxes, other insurances for the house, any maintenance. It's much harder to sell quickly, plus high closing costs add more additional to that house. Home appreciation is lower than other investments, such as paying off debt. And from 1980 to 2004, homes may have increased 247%, while the S&P increased over 1,000% investments. You don't need to own a home to become wealthy. It's an ideal. If you follow this game plan, you will have your home and you'll be able to pay it off early. I personally like to own my own home, but a lot of people will buy a home when they're going to move in 2 or 3 years, and it's not a good way to put your money. And it doesn't give you any diversification like sometimes the market does. Paying your mortgage is a form of forced savings. So it is a good way of saving if you plan to be in that house. And really your home does become like an inflation protected bond where it's a good solid money and it does go up in inflation. So the idea, if you're going to be in a place for a long time and you're going to pay your house off in 5 to 7 years, buy a house. The average American moves every 7 years. By then, only 11% of the home is paid off. Only 11% of the home is paid off. Here's an example. Over the first 7 years, $106,000 was paid toward the mortgage, and only $25,000 went to the principal. That's all you paid toward the house. The rest, the bank took. So you lost an additional 7% in sales commission when you sell the house. You probably put another $10,000 in home improvement, and then there are closing costs. In reality, over a 7-year period, you really have a negative return on the home. It would be better to rent. Ideally, you could have paid that house off in 7 years and then eliminated a lot of the interest. And then you could have taken that money, sold the house, have cash for your next house. Remember, there are costs to owning a house. There's a down payment, the closing costs, mortgage interest, all these things, association fees, property taxes, real estate commissions when you sell. So buy a house that you can pay off in 5 to 10 years. Never carry a mortgage larger than twice your gross income, and should not spend more than 16 to 20% of your gross income on housing. It includes the mortgage, payments, utilities. If you are, you're in too big of a home, or you should rent. These are the other expenses we talked about, and you have to think about when you own a home. Why spenders need to be debt-free. It is amazing. How do we talk our spender partner that we should be debt-free? We need to remind him or her that we'll be able to have 3 times as much money once we're debt-free, and we can work 2/3 less. You have 3 times as much to spend on stuff. No longer pay 100% or 400% to 400% in interest for a home. You make over 100% return on your money. 2/3 of what you're ever going to the bank. Why would you want to do that? I think a spender would understand that. Your relationships become much better when you're debt-free. And this allows personal freedom. I think a spender would appreciate that. Some financial mistakes is the failure to stop to find out what makes us happy. We keep buying things and we're not happy because it really has nothing to do with that. It's a lot of the background that we carry, a lot of history. Lack of financial knowledge and a specific game plan. This website will give you the game plan and the financial knowledge that you will need to get out of debt and to invest properly. The idea of quick rich schemes. I've seen more people lose money by trying to get rich quick, and it just puts them deeper and deeper in debt. Remember, we talked about buy term insurance, not whole life insurance. Listen to investment advisors, the big mistake on your 401k. Learn how to invest on your own, or don't invest into a 401k until you're debt-free. Trying to avoid paying taxes, like writing off interest payments in your house. Pay off your house. Never get into limited partnerships unless you really understand what you're doing. Buying too big of a house is a big mistake. Buying vacation homes or large boats. Find someone that owns a boat and become friends. And you can always go to with those companies that you can buy or rent a vacation home. Other mistakes is buying timeshares. Just don't. I mean, more people get stuck with timeshares. Go to vacation rental by an owner and rent an area. Really, leasing anything like a car or whatever is basically you're on the negative end of your return of investment. Never buy annuities. Never lend money. Um, or never actually co-sign a loan. A co-signer is called a fool with a pen. Starting another business, I mean, make your business work the way it does first. Unless you really hate your business and you want to move out, then maybe start another one. But just don't keep jumping. Try to make your business work first. Anytime you lose large sums of money on this gambling or trying to make it rich quick, these are big financial mistakes. Getting a divorce, you can lose half of your property, everything. I mean, if it gains your freedom, it's worth it, but the idea is just make these relationships work first. If you do, and you have money or extra, you own a house and things like that, a prenuptial agreement of your assets is not a bad idea. And the key is once you get debt-free, you have it made. I mean, why risk any of it? Just do conservative investment, which we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to talk about in part 4. I will see you then.